Welcome to this complete beginner's guide to Camtasia 2021, where in the next half an hour or so, I will teach you everything you need to know to start recording and editing professional videos and feel confident while doing it. It's in-depth, covers all the basics, and takes you from zero to hero in no time, so you won't need any other tutorials. I'm Edward Stinga from videoplasty.com, and let's get started. Alright, so when you start Camtasia 2021, you will see this welcome screen where you can do a couple of things. You can start a new project from scratch to start editing a video by importing media into your project, or you can open a recent project by navigating on your computer, or you can also see a list of recent projects here so you can continue editing those. But I imagine most of you will just start a new recording, and you can do that by clicking this button right here. Alright, so when you're starting a new recording, you got a bunch of different settings. First one is you can select the area of your screen that you want to record. Right now it's selected as full screen. This is the name of the display. But you can also choose some different preset resolutions like Full HD, 720, maybe even a phone sort of display here. Or for example, you can also do a custom one by just grabbing the corners and moving them around like this. But honestly, I imagine most of you will just use the full screen, which is my recommendation. Next, we can look at the webcam. If you have a webcam, you can turn it on or off like this. If you have multiple webcams connected, you can definitely select which one you want from this list. Personally, I'm not a big fan of those videos myself, but many people like them. So if this is something that you want to add to your video, to have a talking head somewhere like on the bottom right usually, next to the main recording of your training video, then you can definitely do that as well. Also very important, number 3, you can select the input for your microphone. Here you can select, for example, the laptop's microphone, but if you have an external microphone like I do right now called the Blue Yeti microphone, I highly recommend you use an external one because it's just going to be so much better in terms of quality, and the whole feeling of your video is going to be way more professional, and it really just changes a lot actually. And then the last setting that we have here is the system audio. You can turn it on or off depending on your preferences. This can be useful, for example, if your training video has any sort of music, sound effects, or anything like that. Any sort of audio that you want to include in the training video, you can do that by enabling the system audio. And of course, once you're ready to start your recording, just click this big red button right here. And right now it's recording. So whatever it is that you want to record, a training video, an example, or any sort of video recording, do your thing here. And when you're done, you can just go here on the top on a Mac or on the bottom bar on a Windows, right click on it and stop recording. Alright, so for the sake of this demo, I actually went ahead and recorded a bit of a different sort of demo so we can play around with. And yeah, welcome to the video editor of Camtasia 2021. So let's have a quick look at the dashboard real quick, because if this is the first time you see a video editing software, it might seem a little bit confusing, but it doesn't have to be. So as you can see here in the middle, we obviously have a preview of the video, which is actually a preview of what we are currently editing. Here on the left, you have a panel where you can import your media, for example. Right here we have the recording, but you can also import other photos, music, videos, and things like that from your local computer. or you can use the Camtasia library or add a bunch of different other transitions, effects, and a couple of other different animations and things like that to use in your video. Here on the bottom, we have what is called a timeline, and this is where you do the editing. This is where all the magic happens pretty much, right? And this thing right here, what you see here, is called a playhead. And basically the timeline starts here on the left at 0 seconds, and it goes all the way to 5, 10 seconds, and so on. And the playhead is basically a tool that you can use to move at any point in time on your timeline, and you can clearly see things change on the video preview as well. Now, this is a bit of a small video project that we have. It's not that long, but if you end up doing a much longer video, you can also use the scale of the timeline here to just zoom out like this, and this reveals all the way to almost 1 minute or longer. But in our case, because the video is fairly short, I'm just going to zoom in. And then the last part of the layout is here on the right, which is currently empty. But if we select any clip from the timeline, here on the right, we will have what are called properties. So the first tab is actually visual properties, where we can change things such as scale, opacity, and a couple of other things, or the audio properties, right? And for example, if this is closed by any chance, you can just turn it back on using this green button right here. Alright, now let's move the playhead all the way to the beginning and see our demo video that we are going to work with. In this training video, I will show you how it looks like when I... Alright, so right off the bat, you can see that I made some mistakes which were intentional just for the purpose of this tutorial. But you know, sometimes when you record stuff, it happens. It's not very easy to give a great delivery, so you might have to edit out a couple of mistakes, like for example the ones in the beginning. So you can also see it on the waveform. Here is not that clear. I'm going to zoom in, maybe you can see it then. This is the first mistake, this is the second, and this is the audio waveform where I want to actually start the video, because this is where it says, in this training video, I will... So this is basically where the good part starts, and I want to remove the part before that. So to do that, let's do a little bit of very basic editing, which is going to be super useful. So I'm going to select both clips here on the timeline and use this tool right here called Split. So if you click on it, it basically separates the clips into two parts, and now I have 4 clips on the timeline. I can select the 2 in the beginning, hit backspace on the keyboard to remove them. But now, if I move the playhead here, there's basically an empty space, there's nothing here. So what you want to do is drag and select the 2 of them and just move them closer to the left so they start right in the beginning. And the reason why you have 2 clips on the timeline is because one of them, the one on the bottom, is this big recording, and the second one, which is the one on top, is actually this recording right here. So this brings me to my next point, which can be the order of the tracks on the timeline. So you have to understand the way it works is actually very simple. The track that's on top has priority, so to speak, is the one that shows up on top of the other one. So for example, if I were to invert the order and move this one on a track on top, it's basically gonna cover this webcam recording that used to be over there, because it's basically behind it, but we cannot see it because we see what is currently here. So now I'm gonna move this back, and there you go. And the reason why you can see what's behind this webcam recording underneath is that because it doesn't fill up the full screen. Alright, next I want to show you what is called trimming. So for example, if you go here towards the end of my video, keystrokes on screen. Right, so you can see somewhere around here I stopped talking, and basically from that point to here the video is pretty empty and we don't need it. And what you do in that case is you grab a video at the end like this. As you can see, the cursor turns into something else, and then you move it all the way to here to trim it down a little bit. And I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the other one as well. All right, next I want to show you how you can change a couple of the properties. Kind of touched on them briefly before. So say for example with this webcam recording, if I have it selected like this on the timeline, I can grab the webcam. Actually the clip itself doesn't have to be a webcam, can be anything else. So whatever it is, you can just grab it, move it around. Depending on what sort of video you're making, you can move things around wherever they fit your project. And in this case, I can also grab it at the ends to maybe make it a little bit smaller, but we're just going to move it back there. Another thing that you can do is you can crop videos by using this tool right here. So say for example, I want to make the webcam video somewhere like this. That's also possible. Personally, I don't really like how it looks like, but you know, cropping can prove super useful in other instances. So I'm just going to hit Command Z or Control Z on a Windows to undo those changes. Now I'm going to select the arrow tool again. So if you go here to the properties, you can also use the properties to increase the scale like this in a controlled way where you can see numbers and have exact values more or less. Or you can use the opacity property, for example, to make this a little bit transparent, all the way to making it disappear completely if you want to. And of course there are a couple of others, such as rotating your video if you want that, changing the positioning, and again the size. Now let's go to the audio properties here. In this case we only have the gain, which is a property that allows you to control the volume of the audio in this track. So let's use that to increase a little bit to, let's say, 150%. And as you can see here on the timeline, we can already see the waveform a little bit higher. And another thing that you can do here is you can mix a stereo track to a mono one if that suits your project. Now going back to the timeline, you can also control the volume by grabbing this line right here on top of the green area, and you can drag it down or you can drag it back up to where it was. You can also overblow it like this, but I don't recommend you do that and play it back. It's gonna be way too loud. Alright, next let's have a quick look and see how we can add an intro animation to our project. So for that we obviously have to create a little bit of space here in the beginning. So I will select both tracks like this, move them to the right so we can have a little bit of room to play around here. And what I like about Camtasia is that it has a lot of elements in a library, things that you can use for different kinds of projects, and a lot of them are very easy to edit. So I'm just going to show you a couple of icons, for example, if you need them. Those are static ones. And you can also use things such as intros or lower thirds. So for this video, let's just use a lower third real quick. Let's use this basic one, for example. Drag and drop it here on the timeline, and let's see how it looks. As you can see right now, actually it is a little bit smaller because it's probably made for full HD and our current project is 4K. So just grab it at the corners like this to resize it, no problem at all. And there you have it, now it's full screen. Right now it has the Camtasia logo and this text, but we can change it to say Edward Stunga. You can also adjust, the colors to anything that you want. Make it green or whatever. And of course, you can also click on the logo to change the icon to something else. In this case, obviously, you would use your own logo. So all of this is editable and it's super easy to change. And it just looks super cool and more professional to introduce who you are, who's speaking, or things like that. So let's see how it looks. In this training video, I will show you how it looks like when I click anywhere. Alright, that was super easy and super nice. So let's add an intro animation now. So of course you can, have a look and play around with a bunch of those to see how they look like and explore, because there's a lot of options to choose from. But for this one, I'm just going to select this first one and again drag and drop it here on the timeline. And let's see what we have. Oops. Again, I have to resize it to fit my project. There you go. Okay, so in this case, as before, if you have it selected, you can go here and properties and just change everything that you want. So I'm just going to say Camtasia 2021. For the company, I'll say Video Plasty. And for the website, I'll say videoplasty.com. And same as before, everything is editable, even the color. So I'm just going to quickly change the color to green. And there you go. That was a super easy intro. And it was very easy to add and very easy to edit. Now, let's see what else we can add from here. So Camtasia also has music tracks right inside the app. So let's have a quick look here and add some music to our project. Let's say this one called Firefly. And I'm just going to add it here in the beginning. So it starts with the intro animation. And as you can see, it's fairly long. So I'll just go somewhere here, right where the intro ends. And with the audio track selected, you can use the split tool again. And it's going to cut it like this. Now I select the second half, hit backspace and remove it. Training video, I will show you how it looks like. Alright, so that was pretty interesting. But a couple of things. I want to now add a bit of a fade out to the music. As before, you can also control the volume by using this slider right here very, very easily. So in order to add a audio fade out, you can go here to audio effects and it's going to be very simple. It's called a fade out. Drag and drop it to the end of this audio track. And as you can see, it kind of added 2 points. One is here on the bottom at 0% and one is here. And basically what that does is it just changes the volume over time from 100% here all the way to 0% here, thus creating a fade out. Let's just move this a little bit to the left here to start earlier, and then this one as well, and then trim it here at the end. All right, let's hear how that sounds. In this training video, I will... All right, it still kind of covers me starting speaking here, so you would have to move them even more to the left like this, for example, and this somewhere over there, and that would be good. But now, for example, I also want a bit of a transition from the intro to the actual training video. So for that, you can use what are called transitions. And as you can expect it, Camtasia has a bunch of different transitions that you can access in this tab right here called Transitions. And as before, there are quite a lot of different options, and in order to preview them, you can just hold your mouse on them and it's going to show you how it looks like. So my recommendation, as before, is to play around with them and see if you find one that you like. In our case, I'm just going to use this one called Bar Wipe. So as before, you drag and drop it. And as you can see, you have a bunch of different clips highlighted in blue, which basically shows where you can add those transitions, right at the beginning or at the end of a clip. If you also move it in the middle, it's going to add it both in the beginning and at the end of the clip. But in our case, we will just add it at the end of this intro clip right there to see how it looks. In this training video, Alright, Camtasia kind of lags a little bit right now because I'm also recording this tutorial and editing at the same time, which is a little bit heavy on the processor. But as you can see, if I just slowly go through the transition, it's just a very nice bar wipe. It just makes the video look a little bit more professional. Also, you can drag the transition here at the end to make it a little bit longer, so basically tell it to start sooner, or to just make it a little bit shorter. Personally, I prefer to make it longer usually, just because it's smoother and just, you know, gives a more professional sort of feeling to the project. But, you know, if you have a high-paced dynamic video, you can also do shorter transitions. That's perfectly fine. In this training video, I will show you how it looks like when I click anywhere on screen, so you can see it in Camtasia. And then, alright, next I want to show you what I was just talking about in the demo, clicking on screen, and how you can highlight that. Because, for example, a lot of training videos are very hard to follow because the cursor just moves a lot and you don't know where it is on the screen. So in order to do that and make it easy for people to follow your cursor, you can go to cursor effects. And there are a few different ones, but for this one, I'm going to use the one called highlight. As before, you just drag and drop it, and in this case, you can only drag and drop it on the recording here on the bottom. And now if you look at the screen, you can see my cursor is being highlighted in yellow. And of course, same as before, here in properties, you can change the color of your cursor. The color of the highlight, make it a little bit larger. You can do a lot of different things. And of course, you can also turn it off, turn it back on, or if you click the X button, it's just going to completely remove this filter. But now, if I go here to show you a couple more effects for left click or right click. For this one, we'll just use the left click. Let's add a ripple. Actually, no, let's add a ring effect to each of your left clicks. Again, you drag and drop it here. But also let's add a sound effect to make it 100% clear for people so they know exactly where and when you click anywhere on the screen. So add it here as well. And right now we have quite a bunch of different effects here in the Properties tab. You can also see them a little bit clearer here. If I go to the timeline on the clip, you can click on this button that says Show Effects, and you will see a bunch of different ones. But the reason why I want to show you this is because the two for left clicks, the sound and the rings, you can see a bunch of different circles at a point in time where we actually have a click. And let's play it back to see how it looks like. I will show you how it looks like when I click anywhere on screen so you can see it in Camtasia. And then I will show you what it looks like when I'm using my keyboard so you can clearly see. Alright, that looks pretty good and makes it very easy to follow. Of course, don't use a green color for the highlight. Just oops. The yellow one that was originally there by default, that one was pretty good. Say for example, you don't want to have this on screen. You can also enable or disable a bunch of different layers or tracks on the timeline actually. So maybe you want to see how it looks without the lower third. You can go here on the left and using this I button, you can click on it to completely hide it. This hides it from your project so you don't see it when you're editing or when you're exporting, but it doesn't completely remove it. So in case you want to come back to it and restore it or re-enable it, just click the button again and it shows back on screen. But for this video, I will just have it removed. Now let's have a look at what we have and see how we can end this training video to make it look very nice and professional. In this training video, I will show you how it looks like when I click anywhere on screen so you can see it in Camtasia. And then I will show you what it looks like when I'm using my keyboard so you can clearly see the keystrokes on screen. Alright, so the way it just ends kind of abruptly, and I never like that in my videos. And what I highly recommend you always do is to at least add a fade out at the end. And the way to do that, again, is super simple. You just go here to transitions and you scroll all the way down to the letter F, and we have this one called fade. So you drag and drop it here at the end of this one, and now I'm just going to drag and drop it again at the end of the other clip. You can of course adjust the length of it, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. And for this one with the webcam where I'm actually speaking, I'll add a audio fade out as well from audio effects, fade out, and drag and drop it here. Now let's see what we have at the end. The keystrokes on screen. All right, that was super nice. Now let's have a look at another very useful trick that I see in a lot of training videos and that I think you might find very useful as well. The way we highlighted the cursor, we can also highlight and point out the keystrokes. So if you go here to visual effects, Camtasia has a bunch of different ones that you can explore. We obviously don't have time to go through all of them. The video will be very, very long, a couple of hours maybe, if I would show you every single feature of Camtasia. But I'm just trying to show you all the basic ones that you might actually need when you're starting out and doing a training video. And then if you want to learn something more, there's tutorials for that as well. So a couple of super cool ones, keystroke, and one that I'm going to show you a little bit later is device frame. But let's just use the keystroke. So as before, you drag and drop it as a filter, and I'm going to put it here on the bottom and basically our recording. Alright, so with the clip selected, I'm just going to show effects so I can see exactly where on screen I have some keystrokes. So you can see the filter here called keystrokes and the two circles here. So we'll just move the playhead right on top. There you go. And right now you can kind of see something small over there, but it's too small, so it doesn't really look that well. And for that, I'm now going to increase the size of it like this to make it much, much bigger. And if you grab the little red thing, I can also move it a little bit higher so it's easier to see and it's not off screen. Right, so you can also change the styles because Camtasia offers you a bunch of different ones. So whichever one you like, just use that one. And basically what I did here was Command C or Control C on a Windows, which is basically the first shortcut to copy and then to paste, because the next one right here was Control V or Command V on a Mac to paste. So let's see how that looks like all the way from the beginning. In this training video, I will show you how it looks like when I click anywhere on screen so you can see it in Camtasia, and then I will show you what it looks like when I'm using my keyboard so you can clearly see the keystrokes on screen. Alright, I think that's starting to look very professional. And one final filter that I'm going to show you, or visual effect, which I think is a really fun one, is called the device frame. And same as before, drag and drop it here on the main recording video. And it basically adds a frame in which it plays our video edit. In this case, it's a desktop, but I can go here in the properties and change it to a Google Pixel phone, for example. And this is where the recording settings from the beginning, if you remember, where you select the area of the screen that you want to record, this is where it proves in handy if you want to add something, for example, that's vertical and fits a phone screen. But in our case, it's not, so we will just use, for example, a MacBook Pro. And there you go. Also, if you want to download a bunch more, of course, just click this button. Camtasia has a huge library of assets available for you to access, and they're all super easy to use, and they make your video editing life so much easier. Alright, so I'm gonna turn this off real quick so you can see a little bit better. If you zoom in here, you can see that this recording is a little bit pixelated, which might look a little bit low quality, but it actually isn't, and I'll explain why in a minute. So I'm just gonna go back to media, and the reason why I'm using this is because this recording right here is actually the full screen recording, but the one that I'm using right here is a proxy. And to use a proxy, you can just right click on your video and just go to proxy video, and then you can create proxy video. But just to show you how that feels like, I'm just going to delete the proxy video first. And right now the quality updated to super sharp quality. So basically what a proxy video is, it's a lower resolution, lower bitrate version of your main video, so you can edit smoothly even on machines that are not so powerful. In my case, it's mostly so I can record at the same time. But it's super useful, for example, if you have 4K footage or 50-60 frames per second. It's actually very useful in the workflow. And you just right click on it, proxy video, create proxy video, and then you don't even have to remember to delete it afterwards. All you have to do is just export, and Camtasia will automatically use the high quality, high resolution version when you're exporting the final video. But this is super useful and makes your editing life so much easier, especially nowadays with video resolutions becoming higher, frame rates increasing, and things like that. Just makes video editing a much more heavy task on the processor, and the solution to that is to use proxy videos. Alright, so when it's all said and done, you can just go here on the button on the top right here where it says export, to export your video and save it to your local computer. And you have a bunch of different options. You can export as a local file, or you can upload even directly to YouTube, Google Drive, Vimeo, and things like that. But me, I like to keep things simple and just export a local file. Alright, so this is how it looks on a Mac. On a Windows, the navigation or the little window to browse on your computer can look a little bit different, but this is where you select where you want to export the video on your computer and the file format that you want to use. You can use MP4, MOV, or GIF, but especially in the beginning, just go with MP4. It's gonna be super good and more than enough. And if you want to go a little bit more advanced, you can go to options to actually select the settings for your compression. But I don't recommend you do that. Just leave everything as it is by default. And when you're ready, just click export. So you will see a loading bar like this exporting your video, and it might actually take a little bit of time, anywhere from a couple of minutes to, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour. And this depends on the complexity of your project, how many clips you have, how many effects, filters, and things like that. But also on the length of the video, and also on your computer, how powerful it is and how much it can process. So don't worry if this takes a lot of time, that's absolutely normal. Alright, that was my Camtasia 2021 tutorial for beginners. I hope you liked it, and I hope now you will go and make your own videos and share them with the world. For more Camtasia assets, such as stock animation that will help you produce professionally looking animated videos directly in Camtasia with a drag and drop simplicity, make sure to visit videoplasty.com. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, it would be great if you could gently tap the like button and leave a comment, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And for more useful content in the world of video editing, video animation, and starting a YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. I'm Edward Stinger from videoplasty.com. Follow me on Instagram as well at Edward Stinger and say hi, because I really enjoy chatting with you guys there or here in the YouTube comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.